Three yellow orchid leaves can tell three completely different stories. One may be an older leaf finishing its natural life. Another may be reacting to the light, water, or temperature around it. The third may be warning you that the roots are already struggling. The difficult part is that all three can look similar at first glance. Before you water again, add fertilizer, cut a leaf, or pull the plant out of its pot. Pause for a moment. A yellow leaf is not a diagnosis. It is only the first clue. One of the orchids we will discuss looks thirsty, but watering it again could be the worst response. Another has a yellow patch that seems alarming, yet the roots are healthy, and the damage is no longer spreading. A third is losing its lowest leaf slowly, while the rest of the plant remains strong. By the end, you will know how to separate normal aging from a care problem and from a root emergency by asking 5 simple questions. First, where is the yellow leaf located? Second, is the color even, mottled, spotted, or concentrated in one patch? Third, does the leaf still feel firm, or has it become soft, wrinkled, wet, or brittle? Fourth, what do the roots and potting mix look like? And fifth, what changed around the plant before the yellowing began? Those questions matter more than the exact shade of yellow. A leaf at the bottom of a Phalaenopsis orchid tells a different story from a small, young leaf near the crown. One leaf changing slowly is different from several leaves changing at the same time. A firm leaf with a dry, stable patch is different from a soft leaf that is turning yellow from the base. Even the speed of the change matters. A leaf that fades gradually over weeks may be following a natural process, while rapid yellowing deserves a closer inspection. Start by looking at the whole plant. Not only the leaf that caught your attention, are the upper leaves firm and upright? Is a new leaf growing from the center? Can you see fresh root tips? Are the visible roots plump, or do they look collapsed? Does the pot feel unusually heavy for several days after watering? Is the orchid sitting inside a decorative container with water trapped at the bottom? These details prevent you from treating the wrong problem. There is one more habit that makes this diagnosis much easier. Compare the plant with itself instead of comparing it with a perfect photograph online. Take a clear picture today, including the leaf, the roots, and the pot. Check again after several days under the same lighting. A stable mark and a rapidly expanding mark are not the same problem. A plant that is producing a healthy new root while one old leaf fades is behaving differently from a plant whose roots and leaves are declining together. Progress over time can reveal what one snapshot cannot. Also notice whether the yellowing begins at the tip, the edges, the center, or the base near the stem. None of these locations proves a cause by itself, but each helps narrow the possibilities when combined with texture and root condition. If the tissue near the crown is soft or wet, take that seriously. If the leaf is firm and the color change is slow, you have more time to observe before making a disruptive change. The first sign is the one that often causes unnecessary panic, a naturally aging lower leaf. On many Phalaenopsis orchids, the oldest leaf sits at the bottom of the plant. As the orchid grows and produces newer leaves, it may gradually withdraw resources from an older leaf. That leaf can lose its deep green color, become yellow, and eventually dry and detach. Natural aging is more likely when only one of the lowest leaves is affected. The yellowing is slow and fairly even, the leaves above it remain firm, and the roots still look functional. The plant may also be producing a new leaf or fresh root tips at the same time. In that situation, the orchid is not necessarily asking for more water, more fertilizer, or an emergency repot. It may simply be completing the life cycle of an old leaf. Do not use the position of the leaf as your only evidence. A bottom leaf is not automatically harmless. If it becomes soft very quickly, develops a wet or dark area near the base, or several leaves begin yellowing together, inspect the plant more carefully. Natural aging usually looks orderly. The rest of the orchid continues to appear stable. There is also no need to force the old leaf off while it is still firmly attached. The plant may still be withdrawing useful resources from it. Let it continue drying until it releases easily, or remove it only when there is a clear health reason and you can do so cleanly. Pulling hard can tear healthy tissue near the stem and create an unnecessary wound. Do not try to make an old yellow leaf green again by increasing fertilizer. Once a leaf has lost a large amount of chlorophyll, it often does not return to its original appearance. Judge success by what happens next. If the other leaves remain stable, the roots stay firm, and new growth looks healthy, the plant is giving you better evidence than the old leaf ever could. Natural leaf loss can also happen around periods of active growth or after the plant has spent energy supporting flowers. But there is no universal number of leaves an orchid must keep. Some healthy plants carry more leaves than others. The important comparison is not with someone else's orchid. It is with the recent behavior of your own plant. Is it replacing old growth with healthy new growth? Or is it losing leaves faster than it can produce them? If the lowest leaf yellows, while the crown stays dry and firm, the upper leaves remain strong and the root system is active, patience is often the best response. If the yellowing begins near a wet, damaged base or moves rapidly into several leaves, patience without inspection is not enough. This is why the first sign teaches the most important rule of the entire video. Normal aging is a pattern involving the whole plant, not a label placed on any leaf simply because it is old. Now compare that slow, even yellowing with a leaf that looks soft while the potting mix remains wet. This is where many watering mistakes begin. People often see a limp or yellow leaf and assume the orchid is thirsty. Sometimes it is, but sometimes the roots have been surrounded by moisture for too long, and adding more water only reduces the air around them even further. Too much water is not simply the amount poured through the pot at one time. A thorough watering, followed by complete drainage, can be appropriate. The larger problem is how long the root zone stays wet and how often water is added before the potting mix has had a chance to approach the right level of dryness for that plant and environment. Fresh orchid bark allows spaces for air around the roots. Old bark can break down, become compacted, and hold moisture much longer. Sphagnum moss can work well in some conditions, but when it is packed tightly or watered too frequently, the center can remain wet long after the surface appears dry. A transparent inner pot may drain correctly, yet water can still collect inside an outer decorative pot. The orchid then sits above or directly in trapped moisture without the grower noticing. Before watering, lift the pot. Learn how it feels when freshly watered and how much lighter it becomes as the mix dries. Look through a clear pot when possible. Touch the bark deeper inside instead of judging only the top layer. A dry surface does not prove that the center is dry. Condensation inside the pot, dark wet bark, and a heavy container can tell you that the root zone still has moisture. Healthy Phalaenopsis roots often appear silvery or pale when dry and greener after watering, but color alone is not enough. Some roots are naturally stained by bark or algae. What matters is whether the root is plump and firm. A brown root may still be alive if it feels solid. A root that is hollow, mushy, flattened, or easily loses its outer covering is much more concerning. If the bark is wet, but the leaves look dehydrated, do not automatically add more water. The plant may be experiencing dehydration because damaged roots cannot absorb what is already present. That is a very different problem from a healthy plant that has simply remained dry for too long. The symptom above the pot can look similar, but the correct response is almost the opposite. Also, avoid swinging from one extreme to another. Discovering that the pot stayed wet too long does not mean the orchid should now be kept bone dry for an extended period. The goal is not punishment by drought. The goal is to restore a healthier balance of moisture and air around the roots. Adjust the frequency, improve drainage, remove trapped water from the decorative pot, and replace broken down media when the condition of the roots and mix shows that repotting is necessary. The right watering rhythm changes with the season, the temperature, the amount of light, the size of the pot, the type of mix, and the airflow in the room. That is why a rigid schedule, such as watering every 7 days, can fail. In one home, the bark may dry quickly. In another, the same pot may remain wet much longer. Read the plant and the pot instead of obeying the calendar. Before we inspect root failure in more detail, there are two light-related patterns that need to be separated. They can both involve yellowing, but they usually look different and require opposite changes. The third sign is a pale yellow-green appearance linked with insufficient usable light. A room can look bright to human eyes while still providing very little light at the position where the orchid sits. Distance from the window, curtains, trees outside, tinted glass, and the direction of the window can all reduce the light reaching the leaves. An orchid living in insufficient light may remain alive, yet grow slowly and struggle to store enough energy. The foliage may look unusually dark in some cases, but in other situations it can appear weak, dull, or yellow-green, especially when poor light is combined with other stress. New leaves may be smaller, growth may stall, and flowering may become less likely. Because leaf color varies among hybrids, do not diagnose low light from color alone. Look for supporting clues. Has the plant been sitting far from a window? Has seasonal light decreased? Is a curtain blocking most of the daytime light? Has new growth become weaker? Are the roots reasonably healthy while the plant still seems low in energy? When several clues point in the same direction, moving the orchid gradually toward brighter indirect light may help. The word gradually is important. A leaf adapted to a dim position can burn if it is suddenly placed in strong direct sun. Increase usable light in stages. Move the plant closer to a suitable window. Filter intense rays with a sheer curtain, or adjust the position so it receives bright, indirect light without overheating. Then observe the new growth rather than expecting an older yellow leaf to change immediately. More light can help a pale orchid, but the wrong kind of light creates the fourth sign: a defined yellow, bleached, or pale patch caused by excess sun or heat. This damage often appears on the part of the leaf facing the strongest light. The affected area may begin yellow or whitish, then become tan, brown, dry, or papery. Sun injury is usually more localized than the broad, gradual color change associated with low light. The surrounding tissue may remain green. The leaf may still feel firm during the early stage, even though the color has changed. If the plant was recently moved to a brighter window, placed close to hot glass, or exposed to strong afternoon sun, the timing provides another important clue. The damaged tissue will not become perfect again. The goal is to prevent the injury from expanding. Move the plant away from harsh direct rays, increase the distance from the glass, or use a sheer curtain. Do not compensate by flooding the pot with water when the root zone is still moist. Water around the roots cannot reverse heat damage in the leaf. A small, dry, stable patch does not always require the entire leaf to be removed. If most of the leaf remains green and useful, keeping it may allow the plant to continue photosynthesizing. Monitor the area. A dry patch that stops changing is different from a soft, wet, foul-smelling, or rapidly spreading area. The second pattern may involve infection or another type of tissue damage and should not be dismissed as simple sunburn. This distinction is important because beginners often make two opposite mistakes. They may leave a rapidly spreading soft lesion alone because they assume it is sun damage, or they may cut off a mostly healthy leaf because of one stable, dry patch. Texture and progression tell you more than color alone. Seasonal changes can make a previously safe window suddenly risky. A location that provided gentle light in winter may receive intense direct sun in summer. The temperature of the leaf can rise quickly near glass, even when the room itself feels comfortable. If you are unsure, touch the leaf during the brightest part of the day. A leaf that feels noticeably hot needs protection before visible bleaching appears. At the same time, do not move the orchid so far into the room that the solution creates a low light problem. Small adjustments are usually better than dramatic relocation. Shift the pot back, filter the strongest rays, and observe how the next leaf develops. Old patch records what already happened. The new growth tells you whether the correction is working. Now we reach the fifth sign, and this is the one that hides the true problem below the surface. Yellow leaves caused by a failing root system. A damaged root system can make the orchid look thirsty even while the mix is wet. The leaves may become soft, wrinkled, dull, or yellow because water is not moving effectively into the plant. Think of the difference this way. In true underwatering, Healthy roots have too little moisture available for too long. In root failure, moisture may be present, but the damaged roots cannot use it efficiently. Pouring more water into the second situation does not repair the roots. It can keep the remaining tissue wet and reduce oxygen even further. Look through a clear pot if you can. Search for roots that are plump and firm, not merely roots of a preferred color. Dry, healthy roots may be silver, gray-green, or pale. Wet, healthy roots may appear greener. Roots inside the pot can be stained brown by the media and still remain functional. Test suspicious roots gently. A firm root deserves caution before cutting. A dead root may feel hollow, mushy, stringy, or collapse between your fingers. Smell and structure also matter. Broken down bark may smell sour or remain wet for too long. Moss packed tightly around the center may hide damaged roots, even when roots near the outside look acceptable. The base of the plant should not be buried so deeply that water remains against the crown or stem. If the root system is significantly compromised, repotting may be needed. But repotting is not a reason to remove every root that looks imperfect. Cutting too much can leave the orchid with no functional system to support its leaves. Remove only tissue that is clearly dead or decayed. Use clean tools, and keep every firm root you reasonably can. Choose a pot that provides drainage and airflow. Transparent orchid pots are useful because they allow you to inspect moisture and root condition, although transparency itself is not a cure. The pot still needs suitable holes, an appropriate size, and a mix that matches your home environment. A large pot filled with water-retentive media can stay wet far longer than a smaller, better aerated setup. After repotting, do not assume the plant needs heavy fertilizer to force new roots. A stressed or damaged root system can be sensitive to concentrated salts. Fertilizer cannot replace healthy roots, suitable moisture, oxygen, light, and time. Follow the product label. Use a cautious approach only when the plant is ready, and never increase the concentration because the orchid looks weak. Do not expect an immediate visual transformation. A yellow leaf may continue to decline even after the original problem is corrected. Better signs include stable remaining leaves, roots that stop deteriorating, fresh root tips, and healthy new growth. Some orchids recover well when enough viable tissue remains. Others may be too damaged. Honest care means responding early without promising that every plant can be saved. If you decide to unpot the orchid, work slowly. Loosen the media instead of pulling hard on the plant. Old bark can cling to roots, and healthy roots can break when they are forced through a tight mass. Rinse only as needed to see what is alive and what is clearly decayed. Clean cutting tools before and after use, especially when moving between plants. Keep the crown above the media when repotting. Pack the mix firmly enough to support the plant, but not so tightly that air spaces disappear. A wobbling orchid can damage tender new root tips, so stabilize the plant without burying the stem. The best mix is not automatically the driest or the wettest. It is the mix that gives your roots enough moisture while still returning air to the pot within a reasonable period in your home. After repotting, the watering decision depends on how much root damage was present, the type of media used, and the condition of the plant. Avoid rigid rules. Fresh bark may dry differently from old bark, while fresh moss may hold more water than expected. Check the pot closely during the first weeks, because the old schedule may no longer match the new setup. Once you have checked water, light, and roots, inspect the place many growers forget, the underside of the leaves. The sixth sign is uneven yellowing, associated with hidden pests. Pests do not always announce themselves with one obvious insect sitting in the open. Some remain in leaf joints, under leaves, around the base, or near flower spikes. Look for white cottony clusters that may suggest mealybugs, small shell-like bumps that may be scale insects, sticky residue, pale stippling, distorted tissue, or patches that do not fit the pattern of natural aging or light damage. Use a bright light and inspect slowly. Check the neighboring plants as well, because pests can move through a collection. A pest problem is more likely when the yellowing is irregular, when the leaf surface looks speckled or scarred, or when you find insects, eggs, residue, or repeated damage on new growth. But do not label every spot as a pest. Watermarks, mechanical damage, old scars, and disease can create confusing patterns. The insect, or a consistent group of clues, should support the diagnosis. If you suspect pests, isolate the orchid from the rest of your plants. Isolation reduces the chance of spread while you identify the problem. Clean the growing area and inspect nearby pots. Choose a treatment appropriate to the pest you have actually identified and follow the product label carefully. Stronger is not automatically better. An overly concentrated treatment can damage leaves and roots that are already stressed. Avoid spraying a hot plant in direct sun and do not allow liquid to remain trapped in the crown. Depending on the pest and product, repeated treatment may be necessary because one application may not reach every stage of the life cycle. Follow the stated interval rather than inventing a more aggressive schedule. After treatment, judge progress by the absence of new damage and the health of new growth. Old scars and yellow areas may remain visible. The goal is to stop the active problem, not to erase every mark the plant has already developed. For a small collection, examine each orchid one at a time and wash your hands or clean tools between plants. Pests often hide where leaves overlap or where dried flower sheaths provide shelter. A quick glance from above is not enough. Turn the pot, lift the leaves gently, and inspect the plant from several angles. Environmental stress can make pest damage more severe. A plant with weak roots or poor light may have less energy to replace damaged tissue. That does not mean fertilizer is the first solution. Stop the active pest, improve the growing conditions, and allow the plant to rebuild through healthy new growth. Treating the insect while leaving the orchid in the same stressful conditions solves only part of the problem. If you find no pests, no prolonged wetness, no root collapse, and no damaging light exposure, nutrition can move higher on the list. The seventh sign involves nutrient stress or poor nutrient uptake, but this should rarely be the first conclusion based on a yellow leaf. An orchid can receive fertilizer and still show poor growth if the roots are damaged. It can also suffer stress from an accumulation of fertilizer salts. This is why adding more fertilizer to a weak plant without checking the roots may create a second problem. Nutrients only help when the root system can absorb them, and the rest of the environment supports growth. Review the full routine. How often has the orchid been fertilized? Was the product mixed according to its label? Was fertilizer applied to severely dry or damaged roots? Has mineral residue collected on the media or pot? Is the plant receiving enough light to use the nutrients it receives? Is the bark so old that root health has declined? Do not try to identify a specific nutrient deficiency from one photograph or one shade of yellow. Different problems can overlap, and hybrids do not all show stress in the same way. Correct the basics first. Healthy roots, appropriate moisture, useful light, airflow, and a stable environment. Then use a suitable orchid fertilizer according to its instructions, with a cautious and consistent approach rather than a heavy dose. Watch new leaves and roots for evidence of improvement. Older yellow tissue may not become green again. New growth is the record of what the plant experiences after you change the care routine. If the new leaf emerges stronger and the new roots remain firm, that is more meaningful than trying to repair the appearance of old damage. Water quality can also influence nutrient management. Hard water and repeated fertilizer use can leave mineral deposits on the pot and media. Visible crust does not prove that it is the only cause of yellowing, but it is a reason to review the routine. Flushing the pot appropriately with suitable water can help prevent accumulation, provided the pot drains freely and the root system is not left waterlogged. More fertilizer does not create more growth when light is inadequate or roots are unhealthy. The plant needs all parts of the system to work together. Light provides energy, roots supply water and minerals, airflow supports a healthier root zone, and fertilizer supplements growth rather than replacing those conditions. When one part fails, increasing another part may not solve the problem. Now apply the entire system to 3 orchids that all appear to have the same problem. The first orchid has one lowest leaf turning yellow slowly. The color change is even. The upper leaves are firm, the visible roots are plump, and a fresh root tip is growing. Nothing important has changed in the environment. This plant most likely needs observation, not emergency treatment. Let the old leaf finish its process and keep the routine stable. The second orchid has one pale yellow patch on the upper surface of a leaf, facing a bright afternoon window. The patch is dry and has stopped expanding. The rest of the leaf remains firm, and the roots look healthy. This plant needs a light adjustment, not extra watering. Move it away from harsh rays or filter the light, then monitor the damaged area and the new growth. The third orchid has several leaves becoming soft and yellow. The pot remains heavy for days, the bark is dark and broken down, and several roots feel hollow or mushy. This is not a simple old leaf. The evidence points toward a root zone problem that needs prompt inspection and correction. Adding water or fertilizer before addressing the roots could make the situation harder to manage. Notice that the brightness of the yellow did not decide the diagnosis. The rest of each plant did. When you find a yellow orchid leaf, remember the 5-question check. Location: is it the oldest lower leaf, a middle leaf, or young growth? Pattern: is the yellowing even, mottled, spotted, or confined to one area? Texture: is the leaf firm, soft, wrinkled, wet, or dry? Roots: are they plump and functional, or hollow and decayed? Recent changes: was the plant moved, watered more often, exposed to stronger sun, repotted, fertilized, chilled, or brought home from a store? Those 5 questions lead to 3 practical decisions. If the evidence points to normal aging and the rest of the plant is healthy, observe without overreacting. If the evidence points to light, watering rhythm, drainage, or temperature, adjust the environment carefully. If multiple leaves are declining, the roots are damaged, tissue is soft and spreading, or pests are present, inspect and act early. 3 actions deserve a pause every time. Do not water only because the leaf is yellow. Do not fertilize only because the plant looks weak. And do not cut or repot only because you are afraid. Each action can be useful when the evidence supports it, but each can also add stress when it is used as a guess. The next time an orchid leaf turns yellow, do not ask only how to make that leaf green again. Ask what the entire plant is trying to tell you before another leaf begins to change. Observe the leaf, confirm the cause with the roots and the environment, and change only what the evidence supports. That is how a yellow leaf becomes useful information instead of a reason to panic.